Hi, and welcome to the third episode of The Widows Speak. I'm Dr. Phyllis Edwards. You can sometimes call me Dr. E. That's what I'm used to. I wanted to let you know that our first and second episodes will be dropping soon. The first next week, April 1st. Well, actually, we're coming up on it. So kind of losing time here, but it's dropping, and I want to kind of recap a little bit. So obviously from the name, it's about widows, and I'm hoping that if you have a mom, a grandma, a sister, anybody, an aunt, a friend, and they're experiencing what you experience when you become a widow, I hope you'll kind of direct them to us. I'm very, very fortunate to have this opportunity, and I'm very thankful to Flagler Voice for doing this. I really think that widows, as I expressed in the first and second, are pretty much an underrepresented group of people. There's a lot of us out here, and what I hear a lot is that, kind of the same themes. So we went over a lot of that in the first episode, and then you will see more of that in the second. What I'd hoped to do, and what I'm proud to do today, is have honoring guests that really have substantial knowledge of the kind of thing that I'm talking about from experience, but they are talking about from a level of expertise. So today we have a wonderful guest, Iola Burnsed, and she is a grief recovery counselor. I found her quite by, I'd say accident, but really I think by God's grace. I was going in to do my taxes for the first time. I haven't done taxes, joint taxes. My husband always did that. And so it was another huge stack of pressure on me. And as it turned out, I'm walking in and I see her sign, and it says the Valley of Vision. And I'm like, what's that? So I go back and I look at it again, and it has a phone number, and it says grief counseling, looking for hope and healing after loss. Bingo. So I called her, and she was kind and gracious enough to call me back, and we've connected, and I have learned a great deal. I'm going to show you this book. She herself is a fountain of knowledge, but she's also very has a lot of sympathy, but also an empathy, and because she's been through loss herself. And as she explained to me, there are many, many types of losses. What I'm going through, and what those of you that are listening for the purposes of this podcast, is a loss of a loved one. In my case, 50 years. But it's different for everyone. We talked about that before. But there's other kinds of loss, and what she taught me, and she'll expound on it, is that nobody really teaches you how to deal with it. You just take it, move on, take it, move on, and nothing ever gets resolved. So rather than talk more, I'm going to kind of throw it over to you, Iola, and I wonder if you'd give us just a little bit first of your background, of your bio, so that other people listening can understand that this isn't just academic for you. This is internal for you as well.
Yes, it is. Grief has been a part of my life ever since I could remember. I have experienced many losses of various kinds, death, house fire, all sorts of things. So, divorce, things like that. So I ended up spending a lot of years in counseling myself. Mm-hmm. I tried various counselors of all types, psychiatrists, psychologists, Christian counseling, nouthetic counseling, pretty much you name it.
Right.
We had tried all the different types and never really got resolution.
Mm-hmm.
So when I found the grief recovery method, I knew that was the missing link. And I wanted to help people with having that missing link.
So that really became your purpose, your mission. What would you say is the main reason why this particular way to go is different than a lot of the other things that some of us might encounter in your experience?
So what I love about the grief recovery method is there's a curriculum that we follow. My clients have reading assignments, writing assignments. We actually work through their individual situation until we get to the resolution of it, which is structured quite differently than typical counseling. Those are geared more towards you coming every week for years, if that's, and I just love that I can do this in 7 sessions and actually get results.
And I think for me, that was a huge, reason why I thought, this is something that I would very much like to try. Also, I know you do things in different modes, which is great because not everybody is going to come and sit individually. But for me, I've always been kind of a one-on-one, want to look the person in the face. And so for me, this particular method was one of the best that I had seen. And I also like the fact that there are specific tools. And the homework and the book really provide, I think, a greater depth. Because you're just walking through life, kind of trying to get through it day by day, Get up every morning and say, God, help me with today because, you just don't know what you're going to encounter. And it just happens. And if you don't have some actual tools, you can just tend to spiral, and that's the end of the day. In this, can you tell us a bit about what some of the highlights are in the book? It's called the Grief Recovery Handbook.
Yeah.
What I like about it, action program for moving beyond. And that's what we want to do. We want to move beyond. But can you talk about what you think are some of the best tools that you're able to teach or help people with without giving everything away? Just little tidbits.
Yeah, sure. So basically, it's kind of like you mentioned in the beginning, we're typically not taught, hey, this is grief. This is what it looks like. It's coming. Here's how to handle it. Instead, we just form a belief system based on things we hear, things we see, which could be people around us. It could be something you learned watching a movie,
right?
Something you learned listening to music. I believe that's why they say everyone grieves differently, because everyone has a different belief system about grief. Right. So what I love about Grief Recovery Method is the very first few chapters really deal with what are the right ways and wrong ways to think about grief. Because we can have wrong ways of thinking about grief and not even know it. And sometimes when we have those wrong beliefs, that's what keeps us stuck in our grief. So I do love that it covers that in the beginning. And then, like you said, I give you a new set of tools so that you now know how to work through the grief yourself. And it's my honor and privilege to be able to walk people through how to use those tools to accomplish what we need to accomplish to get them unstuck.
Well, just from observing, as I said earlier, I think, clearly you have the background experience, knowledge to know yourself down deep what somebody may be going through. Like going in, I knew I was going to cry. I mean, you can't talk about some of these things that we talk about without, the waterworks opening up. And a lot of us have been taught, not to do that. Don't let your emotions out. Don't let your tears flow. I've heard people say things like, just get in the shower and cry, or, you cry in your car. Been there, done that. I've done every one of those things, but you gave me a different perspective on that in terms of releasing the emotions, and you didn't say, kind of push that away. And I want to thank you for that, but also you tell us why it's not a bad thing, even though this is in our heads.
Yeah, so crying is definitely not a bad thing. What is bad is suppressing the tears, suppressing all the emotions. That's the unhealthy part. God gave us tears, and our tears matter to him. The Bible says he collects our tears. So they're all precious to him, but he does give us that as a way to release. So it is really important to not suppress.
Right. And again, all through your life, depending on how you grew up or what culture you're in or whatever, so I went back and wrote a book. Last year I started about backing up, like thinking of things from the beginning. And as I went through that, first of all, I'd say to anybody, you don't think your story is different. You don't think your story is, you just think you're average, normal, Every single person has such a unique story. And as you go and you do that, first of all, it's very cathartic. It really does. But secondly, it started to bring things back to me, things that I experienced when I was like 5, that I didn't, again, shove it down, move on. My parents they were great parents, but they never, we never sat down and dealt with any of the things. And so as I started to see the different things throughout my life, of course, it got major when I got married and my husband started to get sick about a quarter of the way through our marriage. Then it was really high point. But up until that point, you don't really, like you said, you don't have a clue in how you're supposed to deal with this. The older you get, so maybe you have children, you have a job, you have, maybe your parents are still alive, you've got this, you've got that. You're just moving, you're just going through life, going through the motions, keeping things spinning. I like to say we're, kind of keeping the plates spinning, but we pay absolutely no attention to what's going on in here. So when you get something that really, for me, it was the death of my husband, it's such a finality, it kind of, holds you to the point where you kind of lose it and you let a lot of things out. And so as I talked to you and we did the exercises, I could see that I was allowed to get, more of that out. And so I know in the exercises there are things where you write, and there are other things as well. How do you deal with it, though, from your perspective, listening to different people from different walks of life with different issues? How do you prepare yourself every day? Because you don't actually take it on, but in some ways, you do as you're listening to people, or you wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So, obviously I begin each day and each client with prayer, asking God to just speak through me. Let it not be my words, but his. I think that's most important. But as far as taking on, I think they call it secondhand trauma. I don't really struggle with that, thankfully. I think it's just God's protection. But honestly, when people come in and they have very large traumas, heavy burdens, PTSD, dark depression, things like that. And I don't want this to sound wrong, but there's a part of me that gets excited because I know the program works. It doesn't matter how bad the trauma is, how bad the depression. If you have the right tools, I believe it's John 8:32 says, when you know the truth is what sets you free. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And So I just look at it as a privilege to just be able to share the truth, because I know where that's going to lead. Freedom.
It's true. So, without giving away again everything, because I know this is what you do, but one of the things I found also very interesting was that the things that we grow up thinking are not always the case. And one of the pieces is, well, a couple to me were the myths, and then also like what people will say to you, like they mean well. Don't get me wrong, people mean well, but maybe they don't have the words, or they don't understand, or it's just like saying, go cry in your shower, or I don't want to talk to you about that. When that's the only thing you really have on your mind that you really need to talk about. So those are two areas that I think could, when fleshed out, you must see people kind of, the light bulb goes on.
Yes, definitely a lot of aha moments with learning what some of the myths are about grief. We learn these myths from a very young age. It can start as early as kindergarten on the playground. You fall down, you skin your knee, you start crying. Inevitably, there's the one kid, cry baby, that sort of thing. Yeah. In that moment, that child learns, don't cry in front of people. Don't let anybody hear you or see you cry. And then that becomes part of the belief system. And then, I could give you so many examples of myths like that, that, we hear, we believe them.
We take them to heart.
Yeah.
We just think that's the truth.
Yeah.
It must be the truth. Yeah, I found that part to be very, very eye-opening. And I know that, like we said, you have a practice, and you're located in Flagler County, Florida. But you're also doing outreach. So tell us how you do some of the things, because not everybody, I just noticed that more and more people that, are going through being widows, and they may start out trying to do things like get out there, I'm going to try to get into this group, or I'm going to try to join this organization. And it's hard. It is really hard. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, because I think every step that you take, kind of, it's going to make you grow in one way or another. But I'm not going to tell you either that you're not going to feel like a fish out of water, because you do. Even going to church sometimes, for me, I'm trying to, go to church, and you go to church, but you're still all alone. Yeah. And everybody is kind of isolated in their own little space. And there's just not a lot to connect people. And right now I feel like that's what they need. But that being said, how do you feel like you can reach people that, for whatever reason, they've just decided this is it. This is what life's going to be like. I'm going to, I'll go to the food store, I'll take care of my pets, but pretty much I'm going to just stay in my house.
Yeah. My heart goes out to people who are experiencing that, because loneliness is hard. It's very hard. Loneliness causes a lot of grief. So for me personally, right now, I've opened up my practice to Zoom. I do the private one-on-one sessions. I do group sessions. I have groups that are open to all types of loss, and then I have groups specific to widows. I also do a lot of speaking engagements around town with different organizations. We have some for Parkinson's, we have some for dementia. I was just at a church this morning and did a speaking event there. So, I try to, just be a part of my community as much as I can, and just get the word out that there is help available.
And a lot of churches do try to do something, and many of them do a great job of it. It's just, again, whether you're more comfortable going maybe to your church group, or maybe you find that there's just a lot of people in there. Like there were a lot of people when I went. I mean, there were 15 or more, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
People are going through their own personal trauma and grief, and everybody's trying to, maybe not everybody, because some people stay very, very silent. I know this from being an educator, that you're always going to have folks that just listen. But you do want to try to draw people out. And I'm sure that in your training, you learned that skill as well. Like, how do you draw people out? Because if you got to get to the core of what's going on.
Yeah. So the programs that the local churches offer is called Grief Share.
Okay.
And it is a wonderful program. Love it. Lots of good material. Obviously scripture. It is a group setting. A group setting is not for everyone. You're not going to draw people out that don't want to be drawn out, even in a group setting.
That's true.
It's very good material. I would encourage everyone to go through a Grief Share program. They're great. A lot of good material. But also, if you've been through Grief Share, and some people go through it multiple times.
They do, yes. Right.
If you've been through Grief Share, and if you've been through it multiple times and you still feel like there's something missing, I'm not quite there, it's still lingering, I still feel stuck, I would highly recommend talking to me, because what I do is individualized. Everyone's grief is individual. There are no two people that are grieving the same thing or the same loss. So I would highly recommend coming and doing a private one-on-one so that you can feel free to talk.
And of course, if you're not there and you want to do even the video piece, the Zoom, we all got used to Zoom during COVID. I ran a whole school system with Zoom for a number of months as we were all closed down, getting ready to, try to open up in some form or fashion. It is an amazing tool. But for me personally, I do like the one-on-one. What was it like when you were going through the training? Like, how was that? Did you, how did you find it, and what made it speak to you? I know we already said that it has a lifetime to it. It's not like going to be forever and ever and ever. And I knew that drew you to it. But what was it like to be in the training session with the people that maybe started it?
Yeah. So I am a learner. I love to learn things, especially things that can be helpful to others.
Right.
So I really enjoyed the training. It was also hard because we have to go through the method ourselves,
right,
as part of the training. And like I said, I had already done 20 plus years of various counseling.
Wow.
Trying to get various things resolved. So to actually be able to sit down, work through something, and resolve it was mind-blowing to me. 20 years I hadn't been able to do that.
Wow.
So it was hard, but it was very good.
Well, it's good that you had that experience yourself personally, because then you can, what's supposed to happen, and you can, relay that on to others. And I'm sure that it was a big step for you to take, to try to say, I really think this is something that I would want to do. And I do, just in the short time that I've gotten to know you, to me, it seems like it really is, it's not just a profession for you.
No, I look at it more as a ministry. Yes, I get paid, but it's not about that at the end of the day for me. It's really not. I can't think of anything that would be a greater blessing than to help someone take their burden off their back.
Right. And it is a ministry. It is a calling.
Yeah.
It's not, like we say, it's not just something that you go in the office every day and say, put my sign out, this is what I do. And I think in that respect, all of us are directed in, well, we may not know it, but for the most part, I think we're directed to go in that way. So we're getting ready to close this episode out in 5 minutes, and I'm so grateful again for our guest. And I'd like to be able to allow you the opportunity, because we are going to have another episode with Iola, and I know you're going to want to know more information about how to get a hold of her, or websites, or how you can look her up. So I want to give you the opportunity to talk about that, and we'll close out when you're done with that.
Okay. So you can reach me at 386-243-9090. I'll say that again, 386-243-9090. Or you can go to my website at paperbell.me/Iola-Burnsed. I know that's a long one. I'll repeat that again. It's paperbell.me/Iola-Burnsed.
Can they also, say, who knows where they are? Apparently, this reaches people all over the place, just even in the United States. But could they, Google you or grief recovery?
Yes,
and,
absolutely. So you can go to the griefrecoverymethod.com. You can search for local coaches in your area. You can search by city or zip code or name. If you know the name of the coach that you're looking for, you will find me on their website. I am listed as one of their coaches.
Great. Mm-hmm. Well, we are going to close it down, but we always want to close by remembering that God promised us beauty for ashes and is very close to the brokenhearted. And we want you to know, of course, that you're not alone, that what you're experiencing is normal. It's different for everyone, but it is normal. You're not alone. You're not isolated. So with that, I'm going to sign off for this episode and hope that you'll come back and join us for our next. God bless you.